Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, something extraordinary has happened, and I got a big decision to make. I kind of come to a fork in my road. There's something going on in Taiwan. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to jinx it. Last time last time being almost 6 years ago now, I talked too much about it, and I think it jinxed the situation. But something's going on in Taiwan, and I may think about pivoting and move my career over there, and maybe even pivoting the career direction itself. But at the same time, for the first time in a long time, I actually feel like I could make it back home. So I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I have a lot of difficulty with networking with people here. You guys have been following the saga for a number of years now. And today the weather hit 90 degrees, and that was a big fear of mine because last year it had hit 110 degrees. I was all alone, and it created a lot of trickiness. A lot of people, most of my viewers are married, it sounds like, and a lot of people don't seem to appreciate how it is to manage a household as a single guy. A lot of people don't appreciate it. And you know what? It's gotten harder over the years. I don't feel less healthy than I did when I was in my 20s, but let's just say that household chores have seemed to become more difficult. I have less patience than I did 10 years ago. I have less bandwidth and perhaps a little bit of lifestyle inflation as well. I kind of expect a lot of things that I didn't expect 10 years ago, right? A little bit of expectation inflation, if you will, right? There's a little bit of that too. But whatever the situation is, I had a lot of difficulty with mingling with people here. Last summer, heat wave, COVID 19, and it was like I wanted to die. And so that was a terrifying summer for me. You got to understand, I had two suicide attempts in my past. And so a shock like what happened last year, too many of those will probably take me back there again. I don't want to go back there. And so I was scared to death about the idea of summer coming back. In fact, earlier this year, one of my New Year's resolutions was to make sure I had enough time and money that by summertime I could take a short sabbatical and take a trip somewhere cooler. Right? I teach at a community college. There are usually two uh, halves to the summer, or two summer sections. I was thinking about taking a sabbatical for one of them. I might still. And here's the thing: at the college, they're already talking about budget cuts. I think now I can make the case. Hey, I'd like to volunteer to take one of those summers off, and it will sound like I'm doing something for the team instead of being lazy. Right? I'm thinking of spinning it in that direction now. Right? But so I was terrified, is what I want to say. And finally, last summer, by November, it started to get cooler, and I came up with this idea. And to understand where this idea came from, one day I was talking to a former classmate of mine. He's the same age, we studied the same degree, and similar career paths. And the only difference being that he's married. And I asked myself, I told myself to be honest, how much money would I pay to trade spaces with him? And I thought about it, given my finances, given my circumstances. And so when I thought about the number, it was about 100,000. I mean, granted, having a true connection is worth a lot more than I get it, but that's what I could afford given my finances. And I also Googled how many dates people usually go on with different people before they get married here in the United States. And that number came back to be about 30. And so I thought to myself, what if I could just offer people money to set me up on blind dates? Right? I could talk to people at our church. I could talk to the people at my meetup groups. I could talk to quite a number of people who could help me. Right? And so I took $100,000 divided by 30, and I thought that could be about the amount for the reward. And I started a little bit lower than that because I wanted room to negotiate. Right? And so I started by offering, you guys remember, a 1 kilogram silver bar. And If I ever become famous, that one bar may become worth a fortune, right? Because I even recorded it on the YouTube video. It has a serial number on it. Imagine I become famous for something, art, or or some other reason, right? I hunt brother of the market or whatever the situation is, and the person who won that reward, he has that bar with the serial number on it, right? Imagine that, right? He'll really get a reward at that point, right? Right now, it's only worth a little over 1,000. But anyways, a friend from our local church won the. I added a bunch of stuff to the reward, and then he won it, which is great. It was very worthwhile. Why? Well, did anything happen? Did I marry the girl he set me up with, or did I do anything with her? No, not at all. We've never even held hands. But the thing is that I made a lot of connections through her, and I also, there's something else that's a little bit harder to quantify on here. After I went on that first blind date, even though it went nowhere, I no longer felt that hole in my heart, and it was so much easier to ask other people out. Right now, I'm sitting in a cafeteria at Whole Foods. I've actually asked people out here and actually gotten a date, but that was after that. And the reason for that is that I didn't have that hole anymore. You got to remember the sentiment I was feeling back in November. I was constantly chest pain, chronic. It wasn't like, oh my God, it's Friday night, I have nobody to go out with chest pain. It was chronic 7 day a week for multiple months, chest pain. That's what a lot of people don't seem to appreciate. And and there were a couple other rewards. Altogether, I spent about $4,000. It was the best money I ever invested, right? It's probably already paid for itself when you consider uh, when you consider that it's. I'll get to why it's already paid for itself in a moment. But I felt so much more confident that I met quite a number of people. And then at my job, I teach at a community college. It made it so much easier for me to ask for all sorts of things, right? Earlier this month, I had a situation at the office that I'm in. It's an adjunct office. Their outlets are in wonky places, and I asked, could anybody help me with moving furniture? And it was so easy. Before I knew it, I had several custodians there moving furniture for me. In the past, I would have struggled with that. I would have had to lug all the extension cords and all that. And then I asked for a day off so that I could go see the girl that I met in Houston. And there were quite a number of things. And then there was a student at the student union who was interested in me. And she's a student, so I got to be a little bit more careful with her. But I still had quite a number of good conversations with her. And it led to some other connections there, too. And it led to students know each other, right? It led to a bunch of my students writing good evaluations, too. So I probably already made that $4,000 back indirectly, right? So it was best money I ever invested. And yet everybody laughed at me when I first conjured it up, right? And this summer, if I were to get COVID-19 during the heat wave again, I could actually pick up the phone and somebody will actually help me problem solve a few things, right? It's already happened, right? It wasn't COVID-19 during a heat wave. I had other difficulties. And now I can actually pick up a phone and dial a number, right? Best investment I ever made. And then now the situation in Taiwan. And I don't know. I hate to leave the area in Phoenix, though. I finally have some connections. But you know what? It's not so much the connections that I made. It's the fact that I don't have that hole in my heart anymore. And I could actually make the moves, right? I think that was what I was really after. I didn't realize it at the beginning. But that's what I needed more than anything else, right? But I hope I get some good sleep tonight because last night I got some good sleep and I was a little bit more cognizant of what's going on today. Last week I almost got Donald Trump from my job. What had happened was that I was so sleep deprived. I had lost my inhibitions and said some inappropriate stuff to a bunch of my colleagues. And earlier today, I apologized to my colleagues. I was much more mentally acute today, and I told my colleague what's going on in Taiwan, and he wished me luck with the situation in Taiwan. But I need sleep, and I need to correct my eating disorder. My eating disorders have kind of rolled back, and so I thought I had them under control, but all right. Please pray that I get some good sleep tonight. Pray for the situation in Taiwan. You can think of it as a war in Taiwan, or just like the U.S. went to war in Ukraine, right, or the war in Iraq, or whatever, right? You could just think of it as war, right? So pray for my war in Taiwan. Pray for good night of sleep. Pray for recorrecting my eating disorders, and pray for my career pivot. This is the Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum.